It's the Final Word Daily, coming to you live from Battersea, but more excitingly, live from the Kia Oval, where Daniel Norcross is joining me, Cameron Ponsonby, for today's daily of day one of the third test of England versus Sri Lanka. Who's it brought to you by, Daniel? It's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. And how many seconds do you have to sum up today's play? You have 30. After you in 3, 2, 1, go.
Back in his happy place, Ollie Pope has defied the critics and has defied his own form to unfurl a century of sublime beauty, in between which were the occasional peculiar shot. He looks the real deal once again, a captain's 100 back at the Oval. Fantastic 86 from Ben Duckett, which was full of some of the most eccentric shots you should wish to see. An eccentric performance from Harry Brook. Misfortune for Dan Lawrence, perhaps. And Joe Root looks worryingly out of form with a scratchy 13. England closed the day amidst lots of gloom, doom, sepulchral, autumnal awfulness on 2:21 for 3. They're well on top. It's been another one of those days.
So, as you said there, score is 221 for 3. Sri Lanka won the toss, elected to field on the most obvious of bowling days in the history of cricket. A side note, not a side note, something we are going to talk to at great length is light. How much do you need to be able to see? How much do you need to be able to talk about, have to be able to play cricket? Those are the words I'm looking for. But we're going to start with Mr. Ollie Pope, England captain, 103 not out, his 7th test century. My opening question for you, Daniel, is did the talk about Ollie Pope ever actually get to the talking stage, or did we only ever get to the talking about, the potential to talk about Ollie Pope stage? Because as far as I'm aware, of the last 2 test matches, so little was happening. People were just going, if he keeps not scoring runs, we're going to have to talk about this soon. And lo and behold, he scored a 2nd century of the summer. He's fine. It's all fine. Is everything fine again, Daniel? Tell me it's fine.
Well, I mean, it's sort of fine, isn't it? We just don't know, do we? Part of the problem of this summer is that both the sets of tourists have had very little preparation. They have not enough test cricket in between having no preparation. They've got teams that aren't particularly well settled. They're playing in unusual environment. A lot of their players haven't played in England for a long time. Sri Lanka haven't toured it for yonks, 8 years or whatever it is. So how do you really assess the quality of the opposition? You can sort of assess the movements of Ollie Pope, and we're always on the lookout for him being frenetic, aren't we? A little bit to this, that and the other at the start of his innings. Everyone talking about the first 25 balls. First 25 balls today were a lot more assured, but he is back at the Oval. It couldn't really have come at a better venue, could it?
So was he today busy rather than frenetic? Is this what we're doing? Because it's the positive, it's the confirmation bias. When it works,
it's a confirmation
it's busy.
Bias.
When it's bad, it's frenetic.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in fairness, right at the beginning of his innings, we were on the lookout for that on commentary, and we noticed that the ball was coming off the middle of his bat when he played his forward defensives, and he was coming fully forward, and they seemed crisply to arrive at their destination at short extra cover, which I think it's fair to say that was reacting to actual circumstance rather than confirmation bias. What I would say is that around about 3/4 of the way through his innings, I asked Andy Zaltzman to check on his full shot percentage. Yes. And at that point, it was 27.3% of balls he either edged or played and missed. Which is quite a lot, isn't it?
That's loads.
It is loads.
I'm pretty sure the kind of ultimate 100, the most kind of chanceless 100 people were likely to score, your false shot percentage is around 11%. So I'm looking forward to seeing this kind of coming out in the ether, that actually this has not been because Ollie Pope had that asterisk next to his 100 against the West Indies, kept on getting dropped, and he was kind of joking about that. I kind of quite enjoyed at the start of his innings today, because obviously there's this whole thing about like, can he balance the two? Can he captain and can he bat at the same time? Can he bat whilst having the captaincy on his mind? And as far as I could tell, all he was thinking about batting this morning was, these lads are bowling fucking pump, because Sri Lanka won the toss, bowled everywhere. It was Sky did a really nice little kind of very simple bit of coverage where they just got, and I'm sure the BBC would have done it too had they been using the product of sight and visuals, but you just described it in such eloquent phrases that one could imagine it. And they just got Ratnayaka's over to Pope, and they just showed it, just kind of one after the other, where all the pitch map of the over. And you're like, well, there's 2 bad balls, there's 2 good balls, The bad balls went for 4, the good balls got defended, and the other 2 were like fine or whatever. And there was no pressure built up at all on a day where you thought this was an opportunity for Sri Lanka to nip out England's top order. They got Dan Lawrence early. You've got Ollie Pope under pressure or potential pressure. This is it. This is going to happen. Whereas actually England have finished the day in a very strong position.
Yeah. I've got to separate the 2 sessions, really, because there was the first session when England got 78 for 1, and Sri Lanka bowled abysmally when they had every opportunity to take 4 or 5 wickets. You sort of felt if Chris Wokes and Gus Atkinson had been bowling, they could have bowled Sri Lanka out, not just today, but in that short session, because it was doing well. The thing was, it wasn't doing anything, but you felt that was the Sri Lankan bowler's fault. So the level of swing was at its absolute lowest in that first mini session of whatever it was, an hour and a half or so.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise
me.
And
then it vastly improved in the afternoon session. Only in that session, I mean, you sort of saw England's batters getting a bit discombobulated. You saw Root actually fail to go anywhere. They bowled well at him. Ratnaika bowled well at Root. He bowled a couple of maidens at him. There were 16 consecutive dot balls played by Root. Never happens normally. Very busy player.
Very busy.
And
not frenetic.
Very busy. Didn't get the opportunity really to be busy. Got a 4 off his first ball, which was a glanced 4 just past the diving right-handed leg slip. And after that, he just got utterly stuck. And that was because Sri Lanka did actually then start to find lines and lengths. And England countered that in the form of Ben Duckett, particularly, with some outrageous shots. Incredible over against Kumara, and another one against, was it Ratnaika? Before he got out to Ratnaika, trying to play a ramp shot, which couldn't do because there wasn't enough pace on the board. Played the ball too early, toe ended it up in the air, easily caught by Chandimal, the keeper, moving a little bit away to his right. So you've got to sort of separate the way Sri Lanka bowled in those 2 sessions, really poorly to start with. And I think if you look at their pitch maps, you look at their movement, both off the pitch and through the air, it was rubbish, to be honest. They didn't make the most of what were really, really good conditions to bowl in. Thereafter, you'd say, Ollie Pope batted against better bowling, and he played very aggressively. So not frenetically, but he went after anything that was a little bit short outside the off stump, even when it wasn't quite short enough for the cut. Played that shot over and over again, sometimes a little edgily. Played and missed a couple of times while trying to pull that off. And you get a bit more bounce at the Oval as well, which I think is also a problem for Root at the Oval, where his average is 45. A little bit like on Australian pitches, where that sort of tick along, get a run here, get a run there, like knocking a ball on the top of its head, getting it past the left hand of gully or or even to the right of gully, either way, just moving him around, that he gets a run doing that. Here, the ball's just a little bit more poppy. There were times when it was just jagging and stopping in a pitch and jabbing up. I mean, we saw it hit Ollie Pope on the elbow, drew some blood. It hit some people on the hands. So there was life in there, and I think England assessed that there's life in a pitch. Let's go after it, which they did because they went much harder. It felt like in the second session when they came out after 3, what felt like interminable hours of hanging around doing absolutely nothing until finally the mist lifted. So, look, I don't know. I mean, Pope played some beautiful shots amidst all of this, played some beautiful shots, but he had lots of plays and misses. I think Joe Root's played 100 this season with a false shot percentage of about 7%. Okay. And Ollie Pope was up around 25% or so. So it was didn't have the same certainty attached to it, except that because it's at the Oval, and we know that Ollie Pope has a ludicrous Bradman-esque average at the Oval, there was that inevitability to it.
So there's 2 things I want to say before moving on to some Ben Duckett eulogies. Eulogies? That's when someone dies, isn't it? I wanted to say nice things about him.
Well, his innings is over, so in that sense,
so it works.
It's a eulogy for a dead innings.
Okay, thank you. So the 2 things I want to say. One, I don't think it's a coincidence that the 2 kind of batters who have, inverted commas, failed in Dan Lawrence and Joe Root today, their strike rates were in the 20s compared to Pope and Duckett, who people have scored runs today, going up more than a run a ball. I think those 2, Lawrence and Root, probably were almost a truer reflection of where this wicket and where this pitch and where this opportunity lay for Sri Lanka, in that if you were able to bowl that slightly fuller length and allow the ball to have the chance to swing, it was a very difficult batting day. Unfortunately for Sri Lanka, they bowled a lot of. Genuinely, Daniel. It's so rare that I'll ever say that a professional cricket team, international, domestic, has been bad, because these guys are incredibly skilled beyond our wildest imagination, basically. But today was a rare occasion where I thought a team was being bad. I thought Sri Lanka were bad. And the second thing I want to say is, I know I'm being a bit flippant about the Ollie Pope, the gossip and the discussion, and kind of where we actually ever talking about it, and should we be serious, should we not be serious. This is a really, really, I do believe this is a really, really important innings in the context of his career, because if he hadn't scored runs in this match, literally just this match, and then we cut down the road to 18 months' time or 2 years' time, when Ben Stokes eventually gives up the England captaincy, this series would have been held over him, as they would have gone, I couldn't do it. He couldn't hack balancing the two. And although, yes, he scored 100 at a runner ball against a side that's kind of bowled quite poorly, he has nevertheless done it. You could see in his reaction, in his celebrations, how much relief and how much emotion was attached to the century. And in that context, it is a very impressive innings, because there was a chance this was going to kind of follow him around as an extent. But time to give a eulogy to Ben Duckett, not because he's dead, but because his innings is. And I love Ben Duckett. I think he is one of my favourite players to watch in the world. And the reason I say that is, I think people often throw around the sentence, oh, they make the game look easy. And often I think people don't make the game look easy. They prove with their skill level just how hard the game is, that they're able to excel at that level. Kind of that you look and you go, actually, I can't do that. That's really difficult. Ben Duckett, I do genuinely believe, makes the game look easy, because the ball, until he starts scooping, is always hit in the exact direction you'd expect it to be. He's able to cut from a length that's so much kind of fuller than everyone else. But when he stands there, and he almost gives himself the illusion of having this width, you're like, well, yes, of course you'd cut that ball off fourth stump, and why wouldn't you ever do that? And because he's able to cut a good length, when he drives, it's only when people get really full, and you go, well, of course you'd drive that ball for four. Like, this is only an idiot would not just lean gently on that ball and smash it back down past the bowler. But because of that, I was really upset when he got out scooping today, because I thought he was going to score loads and loads and loads of runs, and it was one of the too few occasions in one day. So exciting. When he scooped for 6 first time round, or scooped for 4, I was like, you shouldn't be doing that. It wasn't a case of, it was after the fact he got out scooping, I go, oh, that was the wrong option. He was batting against a Sri Lankan attack that could not keep a consistent line and length. And the idea of this scoop shot in this England team is basically when you're coming up against someone who is bowling well at you, and you go, shit, I need to change where they feel comfortable. I need them to either lose a slip and go out to deep third. I need to change something so they change to me. Ben Duckett did not need a single thing to change to him today. He needed them to keep bowling exactly as they were, and he'd probably still be batting on Monday if that was to be the case. And it's so frustrating that you go, he's got 86 off 79. Yes, you go, you can play that's how he plays. He's one of the best kind of player of unconventional shots in the business. But today I was like, oh, you've left so many out there. There's so many out there. I could give you an opportunity to talk about Ben Duckett, but I'm actually just going to move the conversation on to light and light meters. Can you please tell me how miserable a day today was? Thank you. And more to the point, is there a solution? What is the solution?
Yeah, we all know the solution. We all know the solution. I think I've mentioned it on this podcast, as has Adam Collins. And I first brought it up in 2017, sat next to Graham Swan, when England, after playing a day-night game, 2017 or 18, can't remember, doesn't matter. They played a day-night game at Birmingham against the West Indies. And then they came off a bad light heading into the next game. And we were in the middle of the usual existential angst about cricket and all young people, they don't understand cricket today because apparently all young people have had their brains atrophied by phones or some such ridiculous nonsense. So we've got to make cricket really easy for them by explaining it to them. I thought, well, you try explaining to a child who's just watched a day-night game why, with the lights on, the next game's gone off a bad light. They've seen a ball being changed twice. You just change the ball for a pink ball. That's all you do. That's all you do. A pink ball of the same age. And if anybody says, I'm going to go through the tired, well-worn expression, but that's not fair. Cricket isn't fair. We start with a toss. For God's sake. It's not fair. The weather's bloody horrible today. The toss was won by Sri Lanka. The fact they failed to take advantage of it is not about fairness. It's about them not being good enough. If England had won the toss, Sri Lanka would have been bowled out for 120. The game isn't fair. Sport's not fair. There's nothing fair in life. The world's not fair. Forget that. What isn't fair, I'll tell you what's really not fair, is sitting around this ground for 3 hours, gazing at the sky with the lights on, knowing full well there's a 15-over-old pink ball they can just take out of a frigging box, throw to a bowler and say, shall we get on with it then? What do you think? What do you think? In front of a full house. So
I'm so sorry to have cut you off. The only place I was going to come back to is whether it is so unfair if the idea that if it's a bit gloomy and you've played a 3.5 days kind of working hard, red ball, kind of then all of a sudden one team just gets the kind of pink ball under lights phenomenon where no batter is able to potentially score more than 12.
But wait a minute. That's what happens in a pink ball game anyway. So we've actually baked it into a pink ball game. It's not fair in a pink ball game, frankly, that happens. It wouldn't be fair in a red ball game. Forget fair.
But the idea is that in the pink ball game...
Stop thinking about what's fair, right?
Stop thinking.
It's not,
right.
It's not fair. It's not fair when they replace the ball that you've been using that's a bit manky and it's a bit wet because the batters have quite sensibly tried to hit the ball along the ground, so this ball gets useless and doesn't swing. And then they go, oh, the ball's gone out of shape. Can you bring us another ball? And a completely dry, beautiful ball that's really shiny on one side then gets brought out and starts hooping round corners. It isn't fair when the sun comes out and it's really easy to bat and absolutely magnificent, and then that side declares on 550 and suddenly the clouds arrive and the ball hoops round corners. There's nothing intrinsically fair in cricket. Stop worrying about what's fair. Remember, they've got a full house here. There was only 7,000 people when the game was being played at Lord's. That would have been fine. Don't bother playing in front of 7,000 people. Fine. But you've got 28,000 here. Just get on with it. It was so mind-bogglingly boring and tedious and just, And it's, because also the other thing is that people are going, oh, it's really warm in Manchester. Yeah,
they were doing that.
Do you want the actual stats about Manchester? Yeah. It actually always pisses down in Manchester, except today. It's chosen today not to piss down. Don't bore me with your timeline on how lovely Manchester is right now. Because do you know what? You're intruding on private grief. I've got toothache. I'm taking a really annoying antibiotic on which I'm not allowed to drink. I've gone nearly, 68 hours and 5 minutes without a drink. I'm in a bad mood already. I don't need to hear that it's sunny in Manchester. Then people go, oh, but we're playing in September. Why are we playing in September? We used to play in September. Played for the last 6 years in September. 7 out of the last 8. Forget September. Ashes. Just give them a pink ball. No. So you did ask me about the light, and you didn't let me talk about Ben Duckett and his supreme ramping against the Hiru Kumara. So that, I'm afraid, is what you're going to get on this podcast, is an angry me.
You're not angry about not talking about Ben Duckett. Don't try and bring Ben Duckett in.
That's true. I'm not.
Exactly. Right. So I'm very proud of you for going 72 hours without a drink. And it's quite funny, actually.
Not yet. 68.
Okay, not yet. I'm pretty sure, because I remember my friend's dad's a pharmacist, and one of our mates was put on some antibiotics, and we were like 20. And he was like, what ones are they? And he said whatever they were. And he was like, those. He said, those are the only ones where you actually can't drink on it. We just say it for everything.
Metronidazole. Don't get them if you can possibly avoid it. I can't possibly avoid it because I'm very sorry. I hope you can celebrate with it. Hey, we're losing the thread here. Let's come back on track. And I'm going to say something that's not dull and not boring is the Final Word Hall of Fame. That's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. If you do have your phone near you, I've sent you the ad copy. And then I'm going to let you read the ad copy, and then we're going to do a nice, brief, concise Hall of Fame, and we're going to go on our merry way. Okay, here we go. It's the Westfield Hall of Fame. E, L, and N. What do those 3 letters stand for? Ex-enemies, Liam and Noel? Ed Giddins, Liam Plunkett and Neil Fairbrother? Well, at Westfield, London, it stands for Eat, Live and Nourish. The self-described world's most Instagrammable cafe, EL&N, is now open at Westfield, London. And if you like fake foliage on the wall, neon signage, and more pink than a 40-something divorcee Spotify algorithm, you'll love the place. Enjoy breakfast, lunch, and dinner that'll drive your taste buds almost as wild as your social media followers will be with jealousy looking at your photos. Westfield, London, the taste of social media.
I remember this ad read because we had it earlier on in the series, and I remember thinking I hated the sound of this cafe. And
That's really on message. Well done, Cam.
but I still think other people should go. You won't see me there, right? Dan, I'll start with the final word Hall of Fame. Really tame one from me. Who is the Shranken physio who's managed to strap up there are 110 fingers and thumbs out that Sri Lanka are using fielding, and all of them are taped up. It's completely ludicrous. I don't understand how it works, what it is on them, how they're able to function, how they have dexterity still available to them. It's been confusing me for many a week. I'm just glad to get it off my chest.
Yeah, Chandimal's hands look like something else, don't they? I don't think I've seen that much tape. I don't think I've seen that much tape on a hand since David Warner's hands at mid-on at Brisbane in 2017 when he was mysteriously fielding there instead of point.
Yeah, I don't know what you're referring to there in terms of the timeline
of
reverse swing.
I think he'd hurt his fingers, and as a result, he's quite understandably taped up. Yep, I'll go with that. My Hall of Fame has to be Harry Brook coming out to bat with 3 balls remaining in the penultimate over before tea.
Yes, good.
And he defended the first ball, and it bounced down in front of him, and he had to kick it away. And he looked at that and he thought, oh, no, that looks dangerous. I know. I'm going to have to come charging down the wicket and try and smash the next ball into Brixton. And didn't get on with it awfully well, and then attempted a pull ramp over the keeper off the last ball of the over, the penultimate over before tea. And I thought, yeah, I think you might be trying to score the fastest 100 by an Englishman, and you've decided that there's absolutely no danger whatsoever if you get out. Everything is still going to be fine because Chris Wokes is going to take 7 for 12 tomorrow.
Yep.
And England have already got enough, so why not have a dart? And I thought it was what used to be called brainless cricket, and we now call giving the crowd what they want.
I thought you were going to say Bazball. I was going to be BBC commentator describes...
I say Bazball. No, I'm going to say Bazball.
No?
You've got to be careful what you call Bazball these days, haven't you? Because it keeps on... Well, firstly, you're not supposed to use it, and then when it does get defined, it gets defined as some kind of voodoo about, giving people the right feeling about themselves or something. So, yeah. It was entertaining. Please end the show, because I've got to go to a drinks reception where I can't drink alcohol, so I'm going to do that for 15 minutes and then go home and sulk.
Right. Tomorrow, I think it's Daniel and Adam tomorrow. It might be someone else, other combination of people. I'm back with Daniel on Sunday. This has been the first day of day 3 of the Final Word Daily, brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. I hope you enjoyed it more than Daniel's enjoying himself, which, to be honest, is a low bar, and I reckon everyone has. I'll be shocked and saddened if someone's hated this more than your current aesthetic towards life and alcohol. Sorry, end the show. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Good night, y'all.